Welcome to NFL Daily, where football's not back, but the Trade Candidates podcast is. I'm here in my garage with my friend Bill Barnwell across the country. I just had dinner with you, Bill, in San Francisco. It was delicious. It was fun. Nate Tice was there. What a meeting of the minds. Will Gavin. And yet, it all felt like prelude to this, the show that everyone was asking me about on the streets of San Francisco. When is your Trade Candidates podcast coming out? The answer is today, Bill.
This is the only thing I'm doing between Super Bowl and the middle of next week. I gave myself a week off. This was the lone exception. I said, we have to do the Trade Candidates column. The throngs of fans in San Francisco who stopped not only you, but me and asked, when are you going to hit me with that Joe Thuney for 2026? Yes. I have been grinding for days, trying to find who the next Joe Thuney will be.
Okay, so yes, Bill Barnwell nailed the Joe Thuney trade last year. We did 23 names last year. I have a feeling it's going to go over that this time. We hit about 8 or 9, depending on the statute of limitations. Does Jalen Phillips still count? I mean, that happened eventually. We got George Pickens, Micah, Debo, DK, Minkah Fitzpatrick. When did that happen? That happened at some point.
Right before the season.
Okay, we got some good ones last year, and we're going to do great this year too. Although I don't know if there's as many obvious names. And it's just a season where I think there could be a lot of trades very quickly before we get going. I do think there is a situation in the league that is asking for a lot of trades. 11 teams with more than $40 million in cap space, 7 between 20 and 40 million. That's before opening up space. Then there's about 12 teams that are tight to the cap or under, so it's going to be trickier for them. But a lot of tradable contracts out there. I do think we're in a world where trading is growing, every single season, and it's only going to continue.
I agree. And maybe some of the names aren't quite as big. Some of the people I have as the most likely to be traded are not necessarily superstars, although some of them are, Pro Bowl caliber talents. But I have dozens of potential names here. And I frankly, I stopped. I could have kept going. But I'm really interested in some people at the top of the list who are extremely likely to be traded. And then some people at the bottom of my list, maybe not necessarily likely to be traded, but would be a fascinating deal if they actually went on the move.
I think last year we did a bit of a sliding scale of like interesting names that also had a high chance to be traded early. Yep. We'll go in order of who we think could be traded. Like Stafford was right near the top. So was Pickens, which did happen. I will give you the first pick here, since you had the best hit when it came to Joe Thuney that came out of nowhere. So you can go first.
Okay, Greg. There is only one player in the National Football League who has had his owner go in a press conference and talk about what a bad pick he was over the last 3 months. And that is Keon Coleman of the Buffalo Bills. I am starting with the player who was trashed by ownership at a press conference. Keon Coleman, who was a healthy scratch for the Bills at times down the stretch. I do know Sean McDermott's out, so maybe this could be a thing where Joe Brady, who seemed to like Keon Coleman, will keep him around. But I just feel like once ownership is saying, not for me, I feel like your agent probably realizes I'm not getting a second contract here. You get on the phone, you start talking to teams, you start hinting, hey, maybe a fresh start would make sense for all sides. It does feel like Keon Coleman would be a good place for us to start.
What a way to start, saying the number 6 receiver on the Bills could get dealt. No, I like it. You're right. I mean, I actually forgot about him. I kept panicking. I keep going through different ways of looking. I looked at 2027 free agents in general, because that's like a likely group to get traded. I went through just, high paid players. I went through different rosters, and I somehow missed Keon Coleman. That's a good one. And I do think very likely. There's not a ton of guys on rookie deals like that it's just giving up on the player, but there's a handful of them. I have a different type of receiver, more of a medium to big name, but I think it's right near the top of my list of likely to get traded. DJ Moore can be traded by the Bears. You can save $16 million by trading him. He is owed $24 million guaranteed. You have more in terms of a trade savings?
No, sorry. In terms of cash. So $49 million over the next 2 years for DJ Moore in terms of cash savings for the Chicago Bears. Were you saying for cap?
Yes, for cap.
Gotcha.
In general,
Okay,
I kind of looked for cap but the cash is very important to think about too. And it's also important to think about the contract that he has because that affects his trade value. He's owed $24 million guaranteed this year, which is a decent amount for essentially like a 1-year contract on DJ Moore. That said, the Bears are one of the teams that are over the cap. They have a lot of issues. They are, I believe, the defense in the NFL that has the fewest snaps returning this year. And so I just think they're going to have to make moves. And so this is a very logical one. If you have any landing spots or any other thoughts on DJ Moore, this is just one where I thought I would frankly be surprised if he's not traded. I absolutely think he would have a market. I'm not sure what that market would be. Maybe I'll ask you that. What do you think it would cost to get DJ Moore considering the contract?
Mid-round pick, third, fourth round range. I don't think anything too crazy. The money here it's significant. I mean, $49 million over 2 years is not necessarily like wide receiver one money anymore. Obviously, when you're thinking about superstars getting $40+ million a year, but it's more than the vast majority of teams are paying their number 2 wide receiver. And by the way, if he's on the roster for the Bears this offseason, $15.5 million of his contract in 2027 becomes fully guaranteed. So you're talking about really not just the money for 2026 is already on the books guaranteed. You only get rid of that if you trade him to another organization. And I do think about, how the season ended for the Chicago Bears with that interception where DJ Moore maybe wasn't on the same page. I don't think we don't have the playbook, so we can't say for sure, but that route combination looked pretty wonky to me. Didn't necessarily seem like it was the smoothest route or the most reliable route I've ever seen. He's had some stuff on film. I know JT O'Sullivan, who covers the Bears really closely and has broken down their games significantly for the past couple of years. DJ Moore's effort level, his route running has come into question multiple times. And it's just a lot of money for a team that you figure, okay, Luther Burden's going to be in the mix there as a starting receiver. Rumadunze going to be a starting receiver. They could play more 12 next year with Colson Loveland and Cole Kmet being their top 2 tight ends. They could play a fullback more often.
You might have just said a name that's going to be on this list a little later. We'll see.
But I do think, if he's your third wideout, maybe $24.5 million a year is a lot for a number 3.
It doesn't make sense with his production, and you're right.
But that's high up on my list for sure.
His tenure in Chicago has actually made me think about why Carolina seems so willing to get off him, maybe just not as consistent a player as you want. Now, that said, incredibly productive in his first season with the Bears. His offensive coordinator that year, Luke Getsy, now in Green Bay. His receivers coach, I went extra here just trying to project something. His receivers coach that year, Tyke Tolbert, is now in Miami. They're going to be looking for some talent potentially. His offensive coordinator in Carolina is now the head coach of the Buffalo Bills. So maybe 1 and 2 on this list, they get traded for each other. Ben McAdoo was once his coach too, and he's in New England. So who knows? I'm always trying to connect with the coaches. I think that's a really strong one. I'm giving myself the win in this first round. Not that we're competing. All right, you're next. Go with your next pick.
Okay, less exciting player, but still notable, and I think very likely to be traded. Walker Little, the tackle for the Jacksonville Jaguars, where signed by the prior regime after like a handful of starts at left tackle to a multi-year extension, 3 years, I believe more than $50 million. And then this year, you bring in the new Liam Cohen regime. He starts the year, doesn't play great. He gets hurt. Cole Van Lanen steps in at left tackle. Cole Van Lanen plays well enough to get his own extension, 3 years and $51 million. Walker Little comes back to the lineup. Cole Van Lanen stays at left tackle. Walker Little moves to guard because Patrick McCarry was hurt. In the wildcard loss to the Bills, Little moved back to left tackle just because Van Lanen was hurt. But everything hints to an idea that Walker Little is not the left tackle of the future for the Jacksonville Jaguars. You could kick him inside. Maybe you get rid of Ezra Cleveland, but I don't think that's very likely. McCarry, in the second year of a deal, he signed in free agency. It just feels like you have a league where we know teams are desperate for tackles, especially left tackles. Walker Little not making a ton of money, $12 million next year. That's pretty reasonable for a potential starting left tackle. It just feels like a team like Cleveland, for example, where they have they're going to have 5 new starting linemen or 4 new starting linemen at the very least next year. Kind of feels like you get, okay, we have a below average, but like the 20th best left tackle in football at $12 million a year. It just feels like we have bigger problems if we can get that solved. So I could see them getting probably a high day 3 pick for Walker Little's contract.
Right. Could he be like the younger left tackle answer to Morgan Moses? Just the guy who plugs the gap for a year for 10 to 12 million, and you're happy about that. I love your dot connecting too in terms of the contract that they gave out. He is guaranteed that money this year, Walker Little, a $11 million salary. But I think he'd be tradable. The only question would be like, is there any chance they'd even just straight cut him? But what I do think a team would get him, and then I do think I'm going to give a Jags bump to a handful of players because I just think they're going to be a team that trades. So I'm going to change my draft board around, and I'm just going BTJ next because I want this. I want this show to flow. End. Okay.
I was saving him for the end. That was my juicy, literally the title of that section, the juicy one, Brian Thomas Jr.
I have juicy ones at the end too, but to me he qualified as juicy and likely. You're right. I guess if I was strictly going in order, if my life was on the line, most likely to not. Maybe he wouldn't be this high, but I do think he's pretty likely, and he is spicy. It just seems something that the Jaguars, this group, would do, which is reposition where they are, get picks. They've given away some picks, so they don't have as many, or maybe even get a veteran. And here's the thing, they would get a great price for Brian Thomas Jr. because he's only entering his 3rd year. You would have 3 years of control if you wanted to get Brian Thomas Jr. because he has that 5th year option. Why did he only make the bottom of your list, I guess? Or what are your thoughts here about like if and how they would do this?
It feels a little like the classic, it makes so much sense to us on the outside that they won't actually consider it on the inside move. They do need an X receiver. Like, I feel like if they trade him, maybe you play Jacoby Myers as the X, but there's not they're committed to 2 wide receivers and Travis Hunter and Jacoby Myers. They have Parker Washington, who every time he plays, balls out. I don't know why they would take him out of the lineup.
I think they're committed to him at this point. He'll get a contract at some point.
He should. I think he's a restricted free agent, so he'll be under contract one way or another next season. But that's 3 starting wideouts. And Brian Thomas Jr., like you said, gets them the draft capital they lost trading up for Travis Hunter. So I just think, I've said this all offseason, it makes total sense to me. If you're the Buffalo Bills, do you not just trade your 1st round pick at the bottom of the 1st round to the Jags for Brian Thomas Jr.? Everybody wins. The Jaguars get the 1st round pick they lost for Travis Hunter, basically almost the exact same pick. The Bills get their number 1 receiver, a big physical force, a guy who coming off of a monster season in year 1 before he took a step backwards in year 2. It just feels like it makes sense for both sides.
Yeah, we talked a lot about their wide receiver group on our show during the year and just how Liam Cohen, who just didn't seem like Thomas was fitting the role that he wanted, and he helped them out eventually, but he kind of got the guys to fit the roles that he wanted. And like I said, it's the time to move him. And then so I thought about, okay, well, he produced as a rookie. Who was there as a rookie? His offensive coordinator, a man by the name of Press Taylor, was just elevated to the offensive coordinator in Chicago. Now they have Adunze, they have Luther Burden, they have Colston Loveland, but you're not paying a lot of money for Thomas. That would be intriguing just to see Ben Johnson just completely load up. Hell, I don't know if DJ Moore would get involved. I don't think that makes as much sense for Jacksonville. But you could
get involved though.
Yeah, that would be fun. Just a name, but that would be my dream New England acquisition, even over another name who I'm sure we're going to hit.
If you're the Jaguars, do you settle for a late 1st round pick? Do you insist on more? Do you think you can get more if you're the Jaguars organization and James Gladstone?
I think you'd be happy with a 1st round pick, but I do think you would consider a potential veteran trade too, because the Jaguars are kind of in the middle of the pack in terms of money and everything. One thing that makes it seem more likely to get the pick would be, that they're short on picks because of the Travis Hunter trade, as you mentioned. All right, let's keep it going.
Lawrence is making $55 million a year.
Who? Trevor Lawrence?
Yeah, right?
That's a lot of money. It's funny because if he had just kept slumping, like he was in the early part of the season, he might have been on this list. Instead, he was in the finalists of the MVP by the end of the year.
Timing is everything.
A half a season can change a lot. And it was really half a season for BTJ that elevated him so high in his rookie year. All right, you're up next.
I'll give you one more wide receiver, a couple other players, other positions, but I'll just keep the wide receiver thing going. AJ Brown.
Yeah.
comes to mind.
That was
for
the
me.
guy who was next on my order of
Yeah.
likelihood, but I decided to keep the Jags thing flowing.
Just feels like at this point, a lot of smoke. Eagles have some cap situation to work with. We'll see what happens with Lane Johnson. If he retires, that offensive line might need some help. AJ Brown, definition of wearing out your welcome, maybe over the course of the season. Felt like all sides involved maybe could have used a new start elsewhere. I mean, I understand the logic in bringing him back. You'd be selling low on a dude who's still super talented and still really efficient by some of the advanced metrics out there, but just kind of felt like it was time because the Eagles maybe committing some of that money to their offensive line, to their defensive line. Maybe if they want to re-sign Jalen Phillips, for example, kind of take some of the cash savings and put that towards, re-signing Jalen Phillips, who was excellent for them after he joined the Eagles. But AJ Brown just feels like he belongs elsewhere.
I totally agree. I think all the chatter about how dramatic everything was in Philadelphia this year has only been supported by how their offseason has gone, with Jeff Stoutland leaving and different things happening. And I know Howie and Sirianni have made the case, look, we're not in the business of getting rid of great players. A.J. Brown's a great player. They kind of have to say that. Like, I think the obvious answer here is absolutely true. And you're right that in a way they're selling low, Bill, but I think his value would still be really high. And I think they would think about it like maybe this is the last chance for it to be this high. He's 28 years old, turning 29, and another year where he wasn't as productive. If he does really start to decline, then you're not getting a first round pick. I kind of think you still could. Am I crazy? I think the Bills
he is still good.
Right?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Greg, do you remember anyone who seemed crestfallen on television when his team traded away A.J. Brown, who you can think of, for a team who might need a wide receiver this offseason?
I can, yeah. Yeah, his former head coach. That's a good call.
Mike Vrabel and the Patriots. I mean, it's high risk, but you got Drake May, A.J. Brown, Stephon Diggs. I've heard of worse plans for wide receiver.
The trick is, like, man, the Patriots need some young players, and they need to hit on their drafts.
Yeah.
I don't think they even hit on their last draft at all. I think it's a TBD. Not just because of Will Campbell, but even Travion and Kyle Williams. You know, like, they had a lot of picks. The draft before was awful, other than Drake May, which is a big other than
Drake May.
I know, but everyone would, like, I'm not giving them a lot of credit. They had a ton of picks, and the rest of the picks were a fiasco. Like Jalen Polk is not even on the team. I don't know, I don't even know where he is.
Thanks.
They need young players. So, look, A.J. Brown, for that trade, they got 18 and 101 for him. He might not even cost the first. He might be a high second, but yeah,
I think he would.
Yeah, you don't.
The Diggs trade comes to mind for me, where the Texans gave up a second round pick to the Bills for Stephon Diggs. Kind of feels like that would be the ballpark I'd be thinking.
And the thing to think about if you're an Eagles fan is you're right about opening up money for the different contracts that they could have coming up. Jalen Carter in a year, or if they wanted to get ahead of it, Ojomo is going to be free agent. Jordan Davis, like Jalen Phillips. But also it just saves a ton of future cash and a ton of future cap. It would be a little bit more about 2027, 28, and how he's shown that he's good at sort of thinking about those future years on the fly. So I think we agree there. Wait, that was your pick. All right.
It was.
I'm swimming in the big name waters here.
Yeah.
I do think Kyler Murray's going to get traded. Do you agree?
That was next on my list.
Oh,
I do. And I think like we lump Kyler and Tua together when it comes to the quarterback market. They are such different situations.
Yes.
Because I don't think anybody wants Tua's contract. And I do think there are teams who would take on Kyler's contract as is and trade a draft pick to get him.
Tua did not make my list, really. I wrote down some players that I essentially thought wouldn't get traded, and he was one of those guys. I've seen Dolphins fans kind of conflate these two of like that they're in the same ballpark, and they're not at all. First of all, I think Kyler would be more attractive by a decent amount as a player, even if you took away the injury situation. But because of the contract specifically, Kyler has a much more tradable contract. He is due $36.8 million guaranteed this year, but basically nothing guaranteed after that. If the Cardinals traded him, it would open up $35 million in cap space. They have a ton of cap space, and it won't kill them to cut him, actually. But ultimately, they save more And can you just get like a late pick of someone who wants to control the process? The question, I guess, would be, would Kyler try to control the process too? And he could have a little bit of say in this too, if for some reason, let's say the Jets are involved and he's tries to steer it away. He might have a say in this too, but I do think they will find a team willing to give up a mid to late round pick for Kyler Murray at the least, which is better than nothing for the Cardinals. Who could you imagine maybe going after him?
I mean, the Dolphins as a replacement for Tua would seem entirely plausible to me. Moving elsewhere around the league, I don't think the Falcons would do it. I do think there's like I don't know if he's a great fit for what Kevin Stefanski wants to do, although it would be a heavy play action offense. You could see some ways to make that work. The Raiders, we assume, are taking Mendoza, so they would be out of that conversation.
Vikings would be fun. I don't think the Browns are going to take on big money just because with the Watson situation. I think they're going to. Yeah. I think they're just going to start Shedeur plus a cheap option if nothing else happens. Vikings, Steelers, Jets, Dolphins. They're kind of going to be all.
Steelers are the interesting one to me.
Yeah.
Because it feels like the McCarthy thing sort of was hinting towards Rodgers coming back.
Yes. I kind of expected it would be Rodgers, but you never know. This also could be one because the Cardinals have so much cap space. They could ride it out a little bit and wait until camp. He could be someone that they almost pretend they're going to keep and they're just seeing what happens because they're not in a huge rush. All right, let's keep going because I do want to get to as many names as we can. You are up next. Kyler's the big quarterback fish, though.
Kyler's the big quarterback. I'll go to a smaller quarterback, or I guess a bigger quarterback in terms of size, but smaller in terms of stature. Mac Jones. And I know there's been a lot of like, we are going to keep him, and maybe they will. Like, it makes sense with Brock Purdy's injury history to keep Mac Jones. I just feel like a team that has been, that is committed to Brock Purdy for multiple seasons, that has been so worn down in terms of needing depth, the draft capital they've lost, in terms of the Trey Lance trade, the Christian McCaffrey trade. If you could offer a second round pick for Mac Jones, are you really saying no? Are you really like, that's not enough for us? Like, I could see like not an Andy Dalton trade.
You would say yes. How about
the Matt Schaub trade, maybe?
How about like a future third? Would you do that? Like the 2027 third?
No, probably not. But I think they'll get offered more. I think there's going to be, whether it's the Jets, for example. Like if you're the Jets, would you offer a 2 for Mac Jones? I don't think that's crazy in the slightest.
I like Mac Jones a lot, and I guess I would have to see how the rest of the offseason goes. Look, I mean, me and Mac, we're boys now. You should go back and listen. I know you were very busy last week. Me and Mac Jones.
I saw the video.
By the end of our interview, Eric Roberts, our producer, said, it sounded like I was just listening to a first date. You guys were just broing out. So I'm a fan, but I think Mac Jones knows he has a good situation in San Francisco. He only makes sense in very specific situations. Now, Minnesota is the one that would make
it's a very good one. Yes.
The most sense for both sides, where it's like, okay, I could see that. But otherwise, I don't know if I don't know if a team's going to give up anything higher than a 3.
Would you send JJ McCarthy back in a Mac Jones trade?
I mean, that's hilarious. And who would be giving up the extra pick there is fascinating.
I think the Vikings would be giving up the extra pick along with JJ.
See, that's crazy.
How is it crazy?
Because I do think if you're a top 10 pick, that you get like 3 years before that shine totally wears off. I still remember Josh Rosen after one of the worst seasons ever got traded for a second. That was after only one.
That did. I did still have some faith in that one when the Josh Rosen trade happened. I was like,
JJ for Max straight up though. Who says no? It's pretty interesting.
I do think it's the Niners who say no. I do. And that seems impossible, but I think it's true.
I think the 49ers want to keep Mac, which is why I think it will cost a second, just because
I do.
They are in the ultimate win now window, and Purdy hasn't been extremely durable. And so it's just a great thing to have a guy that can win games off the bench for you. That's fun. I love that choice, Mac Jones. Steelers are a team that came up in my thinking quite a bit. Pat Freiermuth, we actually hit him a little bit on our last show, so I won't go too long, but they barely played him last year. He's due $9.1 million in total compensation this season. He has an extremely tradable contract. And so maybe Mike McCarthy has a different vision for him. That could absolutely happen. But Ollie Connolly on our show kind of said, well, if Rodgers is going back there, he didn't seem a fit with Rodgers for whatever reason. And I actually think he would have a market. So I think he's one of those guys, when I talked at the beginning of the show of like, there's some tradable contracts and there's plenty of cap space out there. And like the types of guys that maybe weren't going to getting traded in the past, he seems like one that stands out to me because he's in the middle of his prime. He's a solid player, but maybe just not a fit there anymore.
Yeah, and if we do see teams lean more into 12, 13 personnel, playing more tight ends, as the Rams did and other teams did this offseason, or during the regular season, I should say, those tight ends could be more valuable. You could say, hey, getting Pat Freiermuth as our tight end 1/2 for that much money is not going to be a bad deal for playing him 70% of the offensive snaps.
No, I think like the test for the guys at this part of the proceedings, I mean, we might have some big names left still, but is it a contract you would happily give to the guy in free agency anyways? And Freiermuth, because he signed it a little bit ago, like would absolutely be like, he would absolutely get more in free agency, I think, than like $8-9 million per year with not many guarantees. So that one makes sense to me. All right, you're up. Let's do 10 and then we'll take a break. You are the 9th trade target right now.
I still got a couple big names on my board.
Okay.
Here,
okay. Actually,
and
so do I.
This is a player who has been rumored alternately to be wanting out and alternately that he wants to stay. And that is Maxx Crosby, the edge rusher for the Las Vegas Raiders. This feels way more smoke to me around Maxx Crosby this offseason than at any point over his prior tenure. And we don't know if maybe the organization upset him by keeping him out late in the year, if they blame that on Pete Carroll. Maybe Clint Kubiak will get there and say, hey, we want you here. But like, in terms of what makes sense for the organization, trading Maxx Crosby makes sense. It is a incredibly logical thing to do, especially again that they could still probably get something significant for him. Maybe not what they would have a year ago or even at the trade deadline, but if Maxx Crosby wants out, you would assume the Raiders eventually will accommodate that request.
Okay, just to play the other side, why, when you have no good players, why is it smart to trade your good player?
Because they're not going to win with Maxx Crosby, so it's better off.
They don't know that.
Team.
I think they probably think that they can win next season, let's say 2027, and in theory, he'd be 31 there. You can still be a pretty effective edge rusher there. They did structure his contract in a way when they gave him that extra money last year that it is pain-free. He is pure savings trading him now. And because he's so unhappy, you probably are going to have to give him more money guaranteed to keep him if you want to keep him. So I tend to agree that it makes sense to trade him, but I also think they think about the ultimate Raider of it all, and that these fans are pretty beaten down right now, and he's kind of all they have.
But they're going to get a quarterback with the first overall pick who's going to be the focus of that organization. And there is like at this tier, when we're talking about like Kyler Murray, the most important person on that organization, that's not a coaching decision. It's not a Monty Ossenfort decision. That's a ownership decision. That is ownership deciding we are out of the Kyler Murray business. I think if Maxx Crosby goes to Mark Davis and says, listen, I've been beaten up too much. We're losing. We're not close to winning. I'm sick of it. I want to get traded. Mark Davis would do that because he feels like Maxx Crosby has been a good soldier for a long enough time. Okay.
I like that. No, he probably should have come higher because Jay Glazer reported he wants out. And if he makes it very difficult for the Raiders, then they might have no choice, and they would have a good market. What do you think? What do you think he'd cost?
I think at least a 2. I don't know if they get a first-round pick given his age. It would be the problem is the Quentin Williams trade probably threw off a lot of trade values around the league. Like I think the Raiders would ask for at least what the Cowboys sent for Quentin Williams, and that's probably not going to happen. But it really depends on who you could get like a
2027 first and a 26 second or something. I don't think that's that crazy.
Ooh, 1 and a 2? Wow.
1 and a 3. I think
it's not. I didn't think Quentin Williams was going to get that much, and I was wrong. So I don't think you can rule it out. But if you're the Lions, who I've pitched over and over again as a Maxx Crosby destination, would you be willing to make that kind of trade for that second edge rusher next to Aiden Hutchinson?
I think I would. Although the money gets complicated for the Lions specifically. That's a crazy amount to be paying on the edge. I'll go to a more simple one. The Colts seem done with Anthony Richardson.
Ooh.
I think someone will try.
Wow. I had a different Colt as my number 10 player, but please.
You take on a little dead money, but you save money versus the cap. It's, you're going into the last year eventually of his rookie deal, unless he wanted to, put the 5th-year option, which they're obviously not going to do. And I do think someone will give him a shot, right?
But who?
Like just as a
that's
backup.
Part of it.
It'll be like the Matt LaFleur like project to back up or something like that.
This is why I asked the question, because you're going to name a team and I'm going to get excited. I will say, remember that famous Kevin O'Connell, Anthony Richardson mid-season meeting. Hey, you're going to be a great player in this league. Little did we know at the time, maybe that would be for the Minnesota Vikings.
That would be amazing. I heard someone who's usually like doesn't just say things to be like, I don't know about Richardson, like he might just be done. And I was like, what do you mean done? It's just like, done. And then I went and I watched some interviews with Richardson after the season, and he was ready to play. He was talking about how he wanted to stay in Indianapolis because he likes the people there, and he's excited for the 2026 season. So I was like, what does that mean done? Because he's definitely going to get other chances. He's 23 years old. And so they were implying something that I haven't seen reported anywhere. And so I don't know why I even said it, but I think he'll have a chance.
You brought this person up just to trash what they were going to. They told you.
Well, just as sticking in my head, maybe I shouldn't put him as high on the list. But what a tease you gave.
Of it all.
Yeah, what a tease you gave that you have another Colt coming up on the list. Let's take a break, and we're going to come back with the rest of our most intriguing trade targets list of 2026. Back on NFL Daily with the show that streetwalkers in Indianapolis were saying, look, not Indianapolis. Oh my God, San Francisco. They were saying the whole Super Bowl week was a preamble to the real big ticket here. I'm really getting myself in trouble. Let's pivot to Anthony Richardson. We just talked about him, and you said you had another Colt, but I cut you off before you had a spicy potential Richardson landing spot.
Would you not be so enthralled, Greg? Would the streetwalkers of Indianapolis and San Francisco not be so enthralled with Anthony Richardson, Kansas City Chief? Would that not be fun?
That would be incredible.
Short yardage quarterback for a team that is probably not going to have Kareem Hunt back and doesn't want to run their quarterback on sneaks. Red zone option, potential short-term Mahomes replacement early in the year. You get to build him up. I know he's going to be not under contract, but you could sign him to a reasonable extension where maybe you build up his trade value.
Okay.
Andy Reid, best quarterback coach of his generation. Would you not be excited for like 4 Chiefs Anthony Richardson starts to begin the year before Mahomes comes back and takes over at quarterback?
I'd be incredibly excited. I think Andy Reid would be too. The whole news that Gardner Minshew doesn't actually have a torn ACL was weird.
Oh, Greg.
Yes.
Chris Ballard, Colts GM. Where was he before?
Hey, I like this.
Oh, he was in Kansas City.
Yeah. I could see that. When I say streetwalker, I just mean like you've seen those John Gruden videos where he keeps bumping into people. That was my week. We walked by Kyron Williams during the week. You would just see all sorts of just faces of like former NFL players and media members. They were just everywhere. The streetwalkers.
I was not watching the John Gruden videos. I have to admit.
You shouldn't. Please don't. Go ahead. Please, we got to pick up the pace here if we want to get to your 35 players.
We're not going to get to all 35. We're going to get to a bunch of them. But Colts player Michael Pittman, a wide receiver, not a quarterback. Michael Pittman's still a good player, but Alec Pierce is about to be a free agent. Michael Pittman entering the final year of his deal, $24 million, unguaranteed. Still a good player, but if you're the Colts and you're picking between Pittman and Pierce, Pierce is younger. He is harder to find in terms of his skill set with his speed. Ascending perhaps, whereas Pittman more on the descending side. Tyler Warren maybe can take some of the Pittman stuff in terms of the more physical route running, middle of the field stuff. Does feel like maybe it could be like we're picking one of these two guys and we'd rather pick Pierce at the same price range versus Pittman, especially if you can get a pick for Michael Pittman maybe in return for that 1-year deal.
Love it. Was one of the last players I had written down too in terms of my I think there's a realistic chance it happens. He was on our show last week. He brought up unprompted that he's not sure what the Colts are going to do with him. I was like, I didn't even ask, bro. And by that, I think he meant trade, cut, extend. Either way, he's entering or just keep. He's entering the last year of his deal. He's still a pretty young player. They gave him that contract early. So I think if you're trading for him, you're not feeling like he's descending. But I think it makes sense because it's all savings to trade him. They have about $35 million in cap space, which is plenty, but they have about as much to do this offseason as almost any team, including paying a quarterback. So I could see that. I like that.
Yeah. Who else you got, Greg?
I'm going to go Kayvon Thibodeau. Not spicy, but last year of his contract, 5th-year option, $14.5 million. Should I just do a doubleheader here? Because I think it's a conversation together. I don't know if you wrote down Dexter Lawrence or not.
Oh, I mean, Dexter Lawrence is, I think, more unique of a player. They don't have like a like-for-like Dexter Lawrence replacement. It just does feel like he, if you were presenting him as the best run-plugging nose tackle in football, that's what Giants fans thought he was heading into last season. The fact that they were the worst run defense in football, and I don't recall it being particularly close. I'm not blaming that on Dexter Lawrence, but he was not able to overcome that. I just think Thibodeau has, they're more likely to have easy replacement for him in terms of a larger Abdul Carter role on the edge in year 2.
Right. And, Kayvon Thibodeau, to review, top 10 pick, been solid. He's going to get a decent second contract. It's probably just not from the Giants. Maybe hasn't lived up to the draft status, but should be starting or close to it in the NFL, and they can save a lot, and it just makes sense. Dexter Lawrence is one of those names when I'm just going through the highest paid players at each position list. I was like, ooh, this is a good one. This could be my Toonie. This is my Toonie, baby. And here's the case. 29 years old. He's, quote unquote, only due $18.5 million on his contract this year, which I think is a tradable contract. No guaranteed money involved. Did not play great last year. Was coming off a really serious injury. And I don't think he was quite the same player. But you're kind of banking on, okay, one more year removed from the surgery. And just did not seem happy there. And I know nobody was happy with the Giants, but that's why I'm doing the double. I just think maybe Joe Shane, you actually get something saucy for Dexter Lawrence where maybe you wouldn't for Kayvon Thibodeau. I'm planting my flag. That's my Toonie.
That's your Toonie. Okay. I'm not at Toonie time yet, but I do have another Giants player.
I just mean like a big name player. I don't think he's been being talked about as a potential trade target. Maybe he is.
It's a good one.
I just think he's one that logically makes a little sense for me. All right, you're up. I just took 2 spots. So you could go 2 if you want.
I'm going to give you 9. I'm going to give you 9 players who all fit into the same group for me.
Dude, 9? Is that allowed? Oh, I thought you were going to give me 9 JJ McCarthy, but I don't know if I'm allowing this, but I'll listen to the case and see what happens.
I'm trying to get as many names in the pod as possible. That's my case.
Okay.
And all these guys are in the same group where probably not likely any of them get traded in terms of each individual one, but I wouldn't be shocked if 2 or 3 got traded. This is the Fresh Start Club.
Okay.
Greg. And a lot of them
this might be separate on the graphic. We have a separate little Fresh Start Club. Okay.
Fresh Start Club includes Deonte Banks, former first-round pick at cornerback for the Giants, who has been buried on the depth chart and struggled. Calais Ringo, the Eagles cornerback, who has been alternately disappointing and not playing very much. Nate Hobbs, the one non-rookie contract guy on this list who signed with the Packers last year, was very disappointing for them. Might be a cut candidate, but could get traded. Xavier Legette, Panthers first-round pick, now their wide receiver 3. Isaac Guerendo looked pretty promising late in the year for the Niners in year 1. Barely played, didn't even play at all, I think, on offense in year 2. Jackson Powers Johnson, the college center who the Raiders don't think could play center, who moved to guard, got hurt, fell out of favor, could be a opportunity there for him to move on. Roman Wilson, Steelers wide receiver, who has 12 catches in 2 seasons. Has not lived up to expectations there. When everybody thinks the Steelers have a 100% hit rate on day 2 wide receivers, he has been an exception to that rule. Caleb Johnson, who was one of the more highly drafted running backs in last year's class, barely played his first season. Mike Tomlin lost all faith in him. I don't know if Mike McCarthy is going to find more faith in him. I think that coaching change helps, but Caleb Johnson and then BJ Ojolari, the Cardinals edge rusher, who I don't think is a free agent, but I should double check. But buried on the depth chart there. I believe he has 1 year left on his contract, if I'm not mistaken. I'll double check it as we record this. But just feels like a guy who maybe could find a fresh start elsewhere, had some success early in his career. He's entering the final year of his rookie deal, Greg. We crammed 9 guys, if I can count correctly, into the 14th pick there.
This is a crazy thing that you just did. I'm not sure how I feel about it. I think it's
Do any
giving
of those
value
names
to the
interest you?
listeners. I don't know if they count as hits. Here's the thing. If I was your editor
Yeah.
or your host in this case,
You have been in the past.
I would take out, that's right, for the Roto World Fantasy Football magazine of like 2010. I would have taken JPJ, Jackson Powers Johnson,
Okay.
out of this, put it into the main group because I think that's spicy. He was a pretty high pick that I think a lot of teams would be intrigued by. He is relatively a name, and I think it could happen. The rest of these guys are probably, some of them are more likely to get cut than traded. I mean, Isaac Guerrero, I would just be like, sorry, that's not high enough octane to make this list.
Wow.
Banks, I think, is getting cut, if they can't trade him. But
Not
you're right.
a guaranteed contract.
It could. Same with Roman Wilson. You're right. It could be something where you get like a late round pick. And so I like Bill's 9-player fresh start club. I'm taking Powers Johnson because I think that's a good one.
Okay.
I'm taking that.
I'm
taking that out on the
Johnson.
graphic. I'm taking him out and I'm putting him in the regular graphic, and we're gonna make the fresh start club. But I like that because these are different players to think about that are smart. Nate Hobbs is a good one that I would not have thought of. I'm still going for some big names that are just guesswork. Deron Payne, the Commanders have a lot of space. He is a really good player, so it probably isn't going to happen. But $16.7 million in savings, only $4 million guaranteed, only 29 years old. It's essentially a one-year deal. The reason I don't think it's likely is the Commanders are bad at football, and he's good at football, and they don't really need the space. But he's kind of an old regime guy, and I just thought, like, when I saw a guy with that high of a price that just kind of cleanly comes off, I think they're going to be a team like the Jags that we've mentioned that just going to be in the mix. Wouldn't surprise me if the Commanders are pretty active in trades, and he was kind of the guy from their team that stood out to me.
Yeah, I mean, Jerson Newton is there as like their third defensive tackle. They could expand his role. They can go out and get another Niners player, which has been Adam Peters' kind of default over the past couple of years. But it makes sense to me. I have a different NFC East defensive tackle on my list. We've already named 2. We named Dexter Lawrence. We named Deron Payne. I'll go Kenny Clark, the Cowboys defensive tackle, because I don't know if you noticed, Greg, they have a lot suddenly at defensive tackle. They have Osa Odigizua making a lot of money. Quentin Williams, who they traded a massive amount for, is going to get a significant extension, I would assume, from the Cowboys in the near future. Kenny Clark, his contract was very cheap last year, not going to be very cheap, if I'm not mistaken, this year. And for a guy who's going to be maybe third in your defensive tackle rotation, is there a better use of those resources if you're the Cowboys? I know they wanted him as part of the trade, but he gets, is it 20? Trying to do the math in my head here. I believe it's over $20 million next year for Kenny Clark, where he's going to be a rotation defensive tackle for you. Just seems like maybe they could use that money elsewhere.
31 years old. I thought about him, and I thought he also could be a candidate to just be straight out cut because it would be pure savings, $21.5 million, whether they trade or cut him. The reason why I think I didn't write him down in the end was I was like, I just don't think Jerry's going to want to take that. Like they just talked about how much Kenny Clark is going to help their run defense, and they love Kenny Clark, and he's such a big part of this Quentin Williams trade. And I just feel like it's a human nature thing, is they don't want to take that L. But I actually do think you're right. I think it makes a lot of sense. And would a team trade something for Kenny Clark for that salary? Yeah, probably. I think you're right. Yeah.
A 6-4-7. Maybe they give him a new contract where he makes less, but he has another guaranteed year after the season. Maybe they do that. I mean, I think they could see it.
No, that's a good one. I'm actually surprised it's taken this long for me to get to Tanner McKee, or you, the quarterback of the Eagles. You laugh. Sure. What about Tanner McKee makes you laugh? Come on.
I mean, it's a good one. It wasn't on my list, but now that I think about it, I could see. Are teams? I feel like the internet loves Tanner McKee. Do you think teams love Tanner McKee?
I am the internet. We are representing the internet.
Okay.
I think there's probably I'm trying to think of who around the league has been with him. Could they consider him in Indianapolis? Probably not, because that's just going to be Daniel Jones. And I think Riley Leonard, it would kind of play the role that McKee, in theory, could be, which would be like the guy who gets us by until Daniel Jones is ready.
Didn't Kevin Patullo just get hired in Miami?
Miami, Tanner McKee, that would be fun.
Yeah.
What a weird staff that is in Miami now that I'm putting it together in general. Big, tall, a little more athletic than you think. I think fits in the system. Our friends at the PHLY show actually did a thought exercise where, and I thought about this too. I mean, is there a world where the Eagles considered trading Jalen Hurts and keeping Tanner McKee?
That's what I was going to ask you.
I think if the contract was a little more forgivable, and I think then it wouldn't be as crazy, but the Eagles would take on so much dead money. I know they did that with Carson Wentz, but it just doesn't feel necessary. It would all be about 2027 if they decided to do that. And like, can they find a team that's actually going to give a couple high picks for Hurts? Yeah, probably. But even that I'm not too sure about. So I kind of ruled against it in my own head. But shout out to our producers, Eric Roberts and Chris Babona, who had the Tanner McKee tape ready. He looked awesome in the preseason in general, Bill, and looked great in the regular season last year or 2024, but not as good when he played in 2025.
Okay, Dolphins call you. I assume Kevin Patullo gives them Howie's number.
Yeah.
They call you and say, we want to trade for Tanner McKee. What, if you're Howie Roseman, are you insisting on if you're going to let Tanner McKee go out the door?
Third?
3? Dolphins are going to pick relatively high. I would assume third would make sense. Maybe you want like a comp pick or conditional pick if he plays, starts 13 games.
Get a conditional second. They once got a second for AJ Feely just to use some Eagles history. I mean, they're not that different, but you're right. I don't know if the rest of the league likes McKee as much. I do know people really do believe in Tanner McKee in that building and maybe elsewhere. So I think he might be like a pretty compelling Arizona landing spot of just like, let's just take a swing with like a 4th round pick that converts to a 3rd or something. So he's someone I'm intrigued by. I've only got a couple more on my I think it's realistic list. And then I have a long, these are just fun names to think about list. But why don't you go?
Well, why don't I give you one more realistic one, and then we'll get to the fun ones.
Okay.
Quentin Johnston is my last realistic one.
I like that.
Where regime inherited him from the prior guys. He's been okay. Obviously, has had moments of real effectiveness, has had moments where he's been very frustrating. I still think his best role is in the slot. I think he's better as a power slot than he is as an outside guy. That role with Ladd McConkey and Keenan Allen there last year for the Chargers was occupied. Oronde Gadsden took a lot of his usage. Like before Oronde Gadsden got in the lineup, Quentin Johnston was playing really well. Once Gadsden was on the field, and I think he's going to be on the field for years to come, Quentin Johnston's role really diminished. He was more just a strictly downfield guy. $17.5 million 5th-year option coming due in 2027. The Chargers have to decide on this year. That's after they're going to pay McConkey. Justin Herbert's already getting a lot of money. It just feels like there's a benefit for him elsewhere. I think there's teams who would benefit from him on like a 2-year deal in the $22 million range. Not very expensive. And the Chargers could probably still get like a 3 or a 4 for me for Quentin Johnston. So I think there's upside there.
I think you could even get a 2 potentially. I did not think of him. This is why it's good to have these ideas bouncing off each other. I think if you're too into Chargers media, which I am, you know how much Jim Harbaugh loves Quentin Johnston. Although he loves everyone, he just loves football players.
Yeah.
This almost hits me a little bit like the Tooney one, where now that you put the case together from the outside looking at it, there is a logical sense to it.
He's not my Tooney.
No, that it doesn't make sense, because to me, I think you're in this window. You like Quentin Johnston. You have him under control for 2 more years. It would surprise me. But at this point in the list, they almost all would surprise me a little. I'm gonna group my last 3 that I think are realistic together. So I'm cheating like you did once. Because they're all tight ends.
You drafted 2 guys with the same pick right before me.
Yeah, I cheated too. You're not trying.
It's very Sean Payton of you.
Cole Kmet, Dawson Knox, and TJ Hawkinson. And it's funny because I already mentioned Freiermuth. So that is 4 tight ends total that all have these tradable contracts that all don't make a ton of sense. Just going through them quickly. Kmet is due about $10 million guaranteed. He's the clear tight end too. They could use the room, the Bears. Although I think they could use Cole Kmet too. So that's not a must trade. Dawson Knox, they could save $10 million cutting or trading him. He's 30 years old. The contract's fine, but man, a team like the Saints that would love a tight end, I think they would absolutely give up something for Dawson Knox. I can really see that one happening. And then TJ Hawkinson, you'd save about $9 million, a little less. Same as cutting him. You would take on some dead money. He's one where I don't know if I'm that excited about paying $15.4 million to TJ Hawkinson, whether I'm the Vikings or another team. So he's just someone I've kind of got my eye on, and I'm throwing him into my tight end pack.
It's been tough post ACL tear. I don't think he's been the same guy.
He might be a more likely to get traded than cut type of guy. I mean, more likely to get cut than traded. Sorry about that.
I feel like they're in that discussion. So I do think that Hawkinson of those three seems most likely to not be on his roster next year. But that seems 50-50 cut or trade for me.
But between the tight end free agents, which we hit on our last show, and then these guys, I feel like 50% of the tight ends ranked 8th to 17th in the NFL are going to move this offseason. Like, there's a lot of like pretty good tight ends available if you need one this offseason. And a lot of
tight end shuffle.
Some. Okay, now we're getting into the fun ones. Let's do it.
Rashee Rice.
Oh, well, that's not as fun just because of the off-field stuff, but it does sound realistic.
Rashee Rice on my list of fun ones. Trent McDuffie.
Yes. Okay. Let's stop there with the Chiefs.
Okay.
Do you have another Chief though?
No, those are my two remaining Chiefs.
Okay. I think McDuffie is a sneaky good one. I think we should put McDuffie just on the list here. I don't think Rashee Rice, because of the off-field stuff, is tradable. I could be wrong.
But I wonder if they're just we're done. We're trading him for whatever we can get. Washing our hands.
Yeah. If they wanted to trade McDuffie, it'd be kind of like the L'Jarius Sneed deal.
Well, right. That's sort of why. And go back to Marcus Peters, who they traded at this point when he was on his rookie deal. They have not been. They're very comfortable drafting cornerbacks, and they're very comfortable trading cornerbacks and getting value at the end of their contracts.
This one I don't want to officially put on the list, but I'm just throwing out. It's my section of players we'll get to a little later, which wouldn't shock me, but I couldn't quite get there. Chris Jones. The problem is I don't think there'd be a market for him because he's guaranteed $35 million this year. You would save 15.6, but does anyone want to pay Chris Jones $35 million this year? He's just someone to think about, I thought.
I just feel like he's worth more to the Chiefs than anybody else.
That's why I'm not going to write him down. McDuffie gets the full treatment, Eric, on the list. I'm going to go for, I have two really spicy ones.
Okay.
Number one, Christian Gonzalez.
I'm going to be so bad.
Of the really spicy ones.
Okay. You got sell me on this one. Come on.
Is he a Vrabel guy? There was a lot of whispers when he wasn't coming back from that hamstring injury and he wants the contract. Will the Pats want to pay him Stingley Surtain money? Because that's what he deserves here. Probably.
He's so good.
He's so good. I would hate it. Is there any chance that they see all their needs that they have, or even see like an AJ Brown or whoever, it would be like a Brian Thomas Jr., whoever it does, and they think about, we don't want to pay him Patrick Surtain money. It's just a little vibe, which I could be wrong about, that just maybe this regime doesn't love him quite as much as the rest of the world does.
I would be very surprised. I think about the Rams trading 2 first-round picks for Jalen Ramsey after 3 years of his rookie deal. Would you make that deal if you're the Rams and you have a huge need at cornerback?
Yes. I think Christian Gonzalez is worth the move. Christian Gonzalez did say, like, look, I want to be back. This is where I want to be. Of course he's going to say that. I'm sure it's true too. I do hope the Patriots, who have plenty of cap space, just give him that contract. And it could be something where it just strings out and he doesn't get the deal, or it goes all the way into training camp and he holds out, or they have the franchise tag that they kind of hold over him into next year. It wouldn't totally shock me. So I thought that was a fun one. I have two like blockbusters that would just not like totally stun me. I'll put there. Patriots fans are going to be mad if we just put this guy on the list, but I think I'm going to do it. All right. What do you got?
I would be surprised, but not impossible. I'm going to save my toonie for my final pick.
Okay.
This is my next to last pick here.
The problem is that you don't know what the toonie is until it happens. You didn't know, that you called toonie until it happened.
I'm saying a player nobody is talking about being traded, where I could see a strong case for him being traded.
But you've had a couple of those. If you got, you threw out McDuffie there, or maybe I did. You had Quentin Johnston. That could have counted as your toonie. But okay, I hear you. Let's throw out the other names.
I'm designating a toonie here. This one's kind of tough, but it is one of the Steelers edge rushers. So,
okay,
Alex Highsmith, Nick Herbig, T.J. Watt in that order.
I love it. And Herbig and Highsmith specifically were on my longer list.
The big board.
My question would be just why? I agree it seems possible, but I don't think they should do it. And so my question would be why? But there is talk about it.
If you, say, need a Tanner McKee, and you knew someone who obsesses over edge rushing talent, would you not call the Eagles and say, hey, look, Nick Herbig, Tanner McKee, 2 guys in rookie deals. You get a cost-controlled player for another year who had phenomenal pass rushing numbers, and we get our quarterback of the future, and we have Aaron Rodgers under center. Does that not seem like a scratch my back, I scratch yours situation?
It's a great question. Would you rather have? I mean, I'd rather just have Nick Herbig. It's a bird in the hand, and you are going to have to give him a big contract sooner than later, right? How many more years does he have on his deal? Just
Final year of his deal.
Up. And one of the cheapest, most underpaid players in the league, and just a pure great pass rusher. Just seems like a guy they should be signing long term. The problem is T.J. Watt is due $32 million guaranteed the next 2 seasons. And to me, that contract is borderline untradeable. They would never do it anyways. So I don't think that's going to match up. I'm considering that T.J. Watt is not going anywhere. And so that leaves you with Highsmith, which is you could get a good return for him, and then you pay Herbig and you get something for Highsmith. Sure. But I also think why? Highsmith's great, and his contract's pretty good too. I think they got him at a nice number, and he's in the middle of his prime. They do have plenty of cap space, so that makes it less likely. But I do see where you're going here.
This is not about the savings as much as it's just getting pieces that you need that you don't have access to. That's why I feel like McKee would make sense as a potential Herbig trade alternative.
That is really
I don't
fun.
know.
I mean, who is definitely doing that? The Eagles. I mean, do you have to give up McKee plus to get Herbig? I don't know. He's a quarterback.
He's a quarterback, and you need those.
They would be thrilled for that trade. All right, I'm going with my other total wild card along those same lines.
Uh-oh.
Would the Eagles ever consider Jalen Carter? I doubt it. But coming off of a season where, he's kind of been a hit or miss player, they're going to have to pay him so much money. Do they ever think about getting a year ahead of things and get the mother load for Jalen Carter? Obviously, I don't think that's particularly likely, but Howie Roseman's a crazy guy. And Jalen Carter is man, you call up, forget, you were talking about Andy Reid before. I mean, call up your old friend Andy Reid. You could have your next Chris Jones here. You would get the mother load, and it would allow Philadelphia to start paying everyone else. Don't think it's really likely, but I just thought Gonzalez and him were these fun sort of big time swings that a GM and more importantly me could make.
It feels like you would need to get a defensive lineman back. I think if you're Howie Roseman, you have to get a young piece who's going to make a difference now back. And that I think is the tough part of making this trade. You could call the Rams and say, hey, we want Kobe Turner back as part of this trade. But at what point do you just be hey, we already have this guy we think is really good. Why not keep him?
Yeah, on some level, it would be a little bit of a bet against Jalen Carter based on...
Which is not defensible, not indefensible.
Right, based on how his career has gone so far. I think the risk of that, and why I don't think they would do it, is look, these defensive tackles, they develop more slowly, and obviously he has shown the ability to totally take over games. And so this has been the pre-prime Jalen Carter. Imagine what the prime Jalen Carter is going to be. It's kind of great. I want a different category for those two guys because I'm going to get killed that we're putting them on our list, Gonzalez and Carter. A little separate category, Eric, that's like, wild cards.
The social media death threat section of the trade column. Okay. Time has come, Greg. Time for the Toonie, the 2026 player nobody is talking about as a trade candidate, who I would not be shocked moves on this offseason. Broncos cornerback, Riley Moss.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Not the most exciting name. I understand that Toonie wasn't.
I thought for a second you were about to talk about the best quarterback in the league. I was like, whoa, Bill.
No, that would be wild, but I don't think that is likely. But they drafted Jay Barron in the first round last year. Didn't get a ton of playing time. Jaquan McMillan is excellent in the slot. I think they keep McMillan in the slot, sign him to an extension. Riley Moss entering the final year of his deal. A good player, but an easy scapegoat for the Broncos. They could keep Barron as their backup, as their number 4 quarterback, basically, and then put him in the lineup next year. But that is a team that still, has some draft capital downstream missing from all the Russell Wilson, the Sean Payton trades. They could add more depth to other parts of their roster. They could try to get a receiver. Riley Moss is a good player. They're not going to sign him, I would assume, as a free agent. They could sign him, I guess, and move Barron into the slot, move on from McMillan, who's an RFA. But I just think that they seem to signal they're not going to be in the Riley Moss business for the long term by drafting Barron. And so I think trading Moss would make sense.
Now, did you consider, you got a lot of pop for the Toonie call. Potentially, he's a future Hall of Famer. He ends up winning Protector of the Year. He'll always be the first ever Protector of the Year. A household name, if you're into football. Maybe not, if you're really into football. More than Riley Moss. Did you consider Riley Moss not enough pop for this spot? Yeah.
Riley Moss is on television more often than any other cornerback in football because they're constantly throwing at him. So and typically he's chasing down another receiver, so you see the back of his jersey quite often. So I do think Riley Moss is more of a household name than Joe Toonie, but I'm willing to be sold up.
And a pioneer. I mean, and he does get talked about a lot. Like, Bomani Jones is always talking about Riley Moss. Yep. Nate Tice, we talk about him
Dominic
a lot.
Foxworth talking about him a lot.
I think he's been an underrated NFL player. I think that's fair to say. I don't know if he'd have a monster trade market. So the only thing you got to be is right here, Bill. But if it's for like a future fourth,
Toonie,
a conditional third, like that's not a lot of pop. I don't know what he's going to cost.
Toonie was a fourth round pick, no?
That's right. I'm saying, what is Riley Moss getting traded for? I don't know if it's that much higher than a.
I would assume like a high day 3 pick, and that seems reasonable enough to me.
I would never doubt the man, the myth, the legend, Bill Barnwell. That was who he was saving all this time. I do have two more guys.
Honestly, I was saving BTJ, and you took him in the top 8.
You can claim that too.
Even though you told me let's do it in order of most likely to be traded to least likely to be traded, and then you hit me with Brian Thomas.
I was playing mind games. 10. I honestly think BTJ is pretty high up on the list. Maybe you're right. I pushed him up because it sounded fun.
It's fun, no question.
It just that's more of a gut feel. Logically, there's other guys that seem more logical. I just have a gut feeling that like he's getting traded. So I'm sticking with that. I have 2 more guys that I think are going to be the final 2 on our. We'll separate. This is your Toonie. But it's a teammate of Brian Thomas Jr. If they traded Trayvon Walker, it'd be $15 million in savings. That's more likely an extension. I don't think it's going to happen because I think they love Trayvon Walker. But you never know. If they just felt like they can't get that deal done, I think there'd be a good market for him. I find him interesting. And then Jesse Bates was the other name that is another team giving up a big thing for Jesse Bates right now. Would the Falcons even want to do that? Why would they want to? He's 29 years old. He's due $13 million in salary. They're in the middle of their cap space, but he's entering the final year of his contract. He was someone I thought, I could see a Rams or a team that just wants like a calm hand in the secondary. I could see that. I tried to look for new regimes. The problem is, Bill, and this supports the idea that there'll be a lot of trades. Everyone's a new regime right now. Like half the league is different. So those are my final 2.
I like them.
We got the 28 plus 8 from the Fresh Start Club. Do you have any? Because I'm pushing against your time here, but we got a little bit of time before you got to pick up.
I do a few more.
Your lovely child. No, that's it for our main list. Do you want to just rapid fire throw out any things that guys you left off that you find interesting, that maybe they're more cuts, maybe you just don't think it makes sense?
L'Jarius Sneed.
Okay.
We talked about him a little bit earlier.
Get cut.
But
you're not going to get traded.
I would assume he'll get cut. Maybe maybe the Chiefs trade a 7th round pick for him and he takes a pay cut. Terrell Bernard with the Bills, who's due $9.7 million next year. Jalen Waddle, who I don't think is likely to be traded, but you would certainly figure is going to be, there'll be teams calling about Jalen Waddle. Dan Moore, who was kind of a mess in Tennessee, maybe an ill-fated contract, but there are a lot of teams.
He's staying, but that's a cut.
His contract, it should be cut, but his contract is guaranteed. I wonder if Tennessee will try to move on from him. Jerry Jeudy, who I realized is the modern day Kenny Britt, where he puts up like okay to good numbers exclusively on bad football teams.
That's not who you want to be. I looked at him and then I just thought the contract was untradeable. There's so much guaranteed money that I was like, I think that would require them needing to throw in as a salary dump someone else taking on his money. So I guess that's possible, but that's unfortunate for them.
I've got one more.
Okay.
And it's in your honor.
Yeah.
That I'm finishing up with this man, and you will have to Raiders will have to eat some of the money to get this done. Our pal Geno Smith.
That's a funny one. Probably untradeable on the contract he has, but you never know. You never know.
$18 million guaranteed next year. If the Raiders eat $10 million and Geno, the rest of the unguaranteed money comes off, and you can get Geno for 1 year and $8 million, would you not be interested?
I would be interested. Would the Vikings or the Steelers be interested in all that? Well, again, I think it's going to be Rodgers to the Steelers, but would it's probably not going to be the Jets either. With the Dolphins. I don't think it's crazy. The problem with that scenario, I guess why I didn't list them, was I think that takes a team really wanting that. Like, that's a lot of hoops to jump through. And so it just seems like he's more likely to just get straight cut. And then a team who would like to give him $8 million, just, okay, then we think about him then.
Yeah.
But I would be that team if I was running a team.
Teams don't always act rationally when it comes to quarterbacks, Kirk. You know that.
No, and I think he's a better option than some out there. There's not enough quarterbacks to fill the amount of reps that will be out there. Some names that didn't make it for me that are just interesting. Rashawn Gary is due $18 million. I think he's more likely to get cut, the edge rusher for the Packers. Calvin Ridley is somehow 32 years old right now. You would save a little more if you're the Titans by trading him than cutting him. $16 million versus $13 million. I think he would be very tough to deal. He's due about $22 million this year. I think he's a pretty likely cut candidate. AJ Terrell and Denzel Ward and Vita Vea were all like future free agents that landed on my but why? Why would you do that? I don't think a team that has them would trade them, but they wouldn't be like the most stunning person in the world. Jacoby Brissett is very tradable. Would the Lions really want to trade for him as a backup to go with Drew Petzing? He's only due $4 million this year, but I think the Cardinals are probably happy to have
Cardinals need him. He's their starting quarterback.
Bradley Chubb more likely to get cut. We mentioned Watt. Will Levis made our list last year. I mean, who knows? Does someone want to give up a 6th and 7th swap for Will Levis? Probably not.
Teaming Will Levis and JJ McCarthy would be my dream quarterback room. So,
and I mentioned Geno here too. Kirk Cousins probably is a straight cut. Spencer Rattler, but I think the Saints will just hold on to him. I don't think Clint Kubiak's sending away draft compensation to be reunited with him necessarily. And then we talked about Tua, who's untradeable to me, but I just think is worth mentioning. That's it. A $42 million cap hit, by the way, if Tua is cut, whereas a trade saves them $8 million. So they could be in a situation, would they give up, maybe not the farm, but would they give up picks plus money just so that it's a trade versus a cut for an Osweiler type trade? I think that's what it would take. But I kind of think he's untradeable.
They should be willing to trade draft capital and get off the deal. Would another team be willing to do that? Like the Browns famously did the Brock Osweiler trade. I can't imagine them paying Tua and paying Deshaun Watson, but stranger things have happened, I
Well,
guess.
there's a couple teams out there with more cap space than you possibly can use. The Titans, the Raiders, the Jets, the Commanders. Yeah, there's the Bengals, although they never get creative. There's some teams out there that could like play some funny money games and just do it. We did it, Bill. This was one of our most listened to shows of the entire 2025 calendar. And so I think it's going to happen again. We'll be having it in prime position over the holiday weekend. I am grateful for your friendship. I'm grateful that we broke bread and got really messy eating some Thai wings.
That was great.
Kin Cow.
So good.
If you're in San Francisco.
So good.
That was so good.
Kin Cow, I feel like, was the favorite place of NFL writers during the Combine. I feel like more people ate there and posted about it on Instagram and how good it was.
Oh, really?
Than any other place in San Francisco.
I didn't know that, although I did hear of another group that went, the Robert Mays group that went for sure. So
With
you could get reservations. It's just in a hotel. It's centrally located, and the food's dynamite.
So good.
But more importantly about your friendship, that you were willing to come out of semi-retirement for a week and a half to do this show, which is like the nicest thing you could do for me. So thank you. Go enjoy your family, Bill. Thank you.
I will.
We'll be back, like I said, after the long weekend franchise tag season starts. So I think me and Shook are going to just talk a little bit about the guys who are going to get tagged. We'll start getting into our top 101 free agents. I got a deadline next week. Can't wait for that. Football is not back, but this show was, and it was a pleasure to do.